All right, cheers, everyone. Ready to dive into something we've all experienced? I'm talking about the dreaded hangover. Whether you're gearing up for a big night out this weekend or just curious about the science behind that morning after regret, this deep dive is for you. We're cracking open this document simply titled Untitled Document. Let me tell you, it is packed with interesting facts about alcohol and its aftermath.
It's kind of amazing.
Excellent. Like, did you know that pretty much every culture throughout history has had some form of booze?
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like they all figured out pretty quickly that it could also make you feel awful.
Right. Like, it's not a secret.
No kidding. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a hangover? I mean, we've all been there. But this document describes it perfectly. That throbbing headache, the waves of nausea, feeling like you could sleep for a week straight.
Ugh, the worst.
It's basically our body's way of staging an intervention, right?
It really is. And it's not just a few isolated symptoms either. A hangover is a full-body revolt, like a symphony of your own physiological processes all going haywire.
Okay, so walk us through it. What's actually happening inside our bodies to make us feel so terrible?
Well, for starters, dehydration is a huge AEE culprit.
Makes sense.
Alcohol is a diuretic, meaning it makes you pee more often, which flushes out essential fluids and electrolytes. It's like your body's already running on fumes, and then you add alcohol into the mix, which just makes everything worse.
And then there's the inflammation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, my stomach is already telling me it's not happy.
Yeah, alcohol irritates your stomach lining, hence that nausea, that overall feeling of, I regret everything.
Oh.
Plus, it messes with your immune system, making you more susceptible to actually getting sick after a night out.
It's like a triple whammy.
It really is.
No wonder we feel so awful. But the document also mentions something called congeners. What's the deal with those?
Congeners are these naturally occurring compounds found in darker liquors, like whiskey or red wine. And what's interesting is that they're metabolized differently than pure ethanol, the stuff that actually gets you tipsy. The document really highlights how these congeners can contribute to more severe hangovers.
Wait, so my love for a good aged rum might be coming back to haunt me.
It might be playing a role.
Okay, hold on. I need some myth busting here. What about that whole thing about sulfites in wine causing hangovers? Is that legit or just a rumor?
It's mostly a rumor. While it's true that sulfites can be a problem for the small percentage of people who are sensitive to them, like particularly those with asthma, for most folks, there's not a strong link between sulfites and hangovers.
Interesting.
It's more about the overall quantity of alcohol consumed.
So ditching the sulfite-free wine won't necessarily save me from a hangover.
Probably not.
Bummer. But the document calls out another surprising culprit, sugar. I'll admit, I don't always think about the sugar content in my cocktails.
Oh, that's the thing about sugar. It's sneaky. Those sweet cocktails taste so good going down, but that sugar masks the taste of the alcohol, making it way too easy to overdo it without realizing it.
Oh, for sure.
Plus, sugar slows down your liver's ability to actually metabolize the alcohol, meaning it lingers in your system longer, potentially leading to a worse hangover.
Okay, so we've covered what a hangover is and why it happens. But now for the million-dollar question. Can we actually predict how hungover we're going to get?
Right, like, is there a formula?
Exactly. And this document dives into something called the hangover threshold. I gotta say, it's kind of blowing my mind.
It's a fascinating concept, the idea that there might be a scientific tipping point. Like a point of no return when it comes to how much our bodies can handle.
Before the hangover gods come knocking.
Exactly.
Okay, so break it down for us. What exactly is this threshold, and how do we know when we're about to cross it?
So according to the document, the hangover threshold is calculated based on how much alcohol you consume. But it's not just the total amount, it's about the amount per kilogram of your body weight.
Okay.
And get this, the magic number seems to be around 1 gram of alcohol per kilogram.
Okay, I'm going to need a real-world example here. What does that actually translate to, like in terms of, say, drinks at a party?
All right, picture this. You're at a wedding, celebrating with friends. You've had a couple glasses of champagne during the cocktail hour and toasts. According to this threshold, for the average person, that might be right around your limit for the night.
Wait, so just 2 glasses of champagne, that feels surprisingly low.
Yeah, it's important to remember that this threshold, it's a general guideline. It's not a hard and fast rule. Individual factors play a huge role in how our bodies process alcohol.
So what are these mysterious individual factors?
Yeah.
Is it just me?
Yeah.
Or does it seem a little unfair that some people can seemingly drink everyone under the table and wake up feeling fine?
You're not imagining things. Our genes actually play a big role in how we metabolize alcohol. Some people are genetically predisposed to process it more efficiently, while others, well, not so much.
Genetics, huh? So are you telling me there's a chance I'm, like, genetically destined for epic hangovers?
Well, I wouldn't say destined, but your genes can definitely stack the deck.
Oh, man.
The document actually mentions some interesting insights that came from genetic testing.
Really?
Yeah, and in fact, my own results showed that I'm more sensitive to alcohol than average.
Whoa, you're kidding?
Nope.
So you really live and breathe this stuff, even on a genetic level.
More than I'd like to admit sometimes.
That's wild.
But it really just goes to show how much our genes can influence our individual experiences with alcohol. But even without a genetic test, you can learn a lot by paying attention to your body's signals.
Like what kind of signals?
Well, think about it. Do you flush easily after a drink or two? Does your heart race? Those can be clues about your personal tolerance level.
That's a really good point. It's like our body's giving us a real-time review of our alcohol choices, and we'd be wise to listen.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about what a hangover is, why it happens, and how our own bodies play a role. But the big question remains, can we outsmart the hangover gods altogether?
I mean, there's no magic bullet, but this document does offer some pretty insightful advice on making smarter choices when it comes to drinking.
Like what?
Well, it all starts with really understanding what we're putting into our bodies.
Okay.
One of the key takeaways is that not all alcoholic beverages are created equal.
Oh, interesting.
The document really emphasizes choosing your drinks wisely, and it comes down to the purity of the alcohol itself.
Okay, that makes sense. But what does purity actually mean in this context?
It all comes down to the fermentation and distillation process. Basically, the purer the process, the cleaner the alcohol, and potentially the less brutal the hangover.
Gotcha.
Remember those congeners we talked about earlier?
Oh, right. The little troublemakers lurking in our drinks.
Exactly. They play a big role in this whole purity thing.
Okay.
Vodka and gin, for instance, go through a really refined distillation process, so they tend to have fewer congeners.
So are we saying, like, clear spirits over dark liquors, at least when it comes to minimizing hangover severity?
Generally speaking, yeah. The document highlights vodka and gin as being at the top of the list for cleaner choices. Whiskey, rum, other dark liquors would fall somewhere in the middle, with wine and beer rounding out the pack.
Hold on. So you're saying we can all just switch to vodka sodas and completely kiss hangovers goodbye?
Oh, I wish it were that simple.
Right.
While choosing drinks with fewer congeners, like we talked about, might make some difference, this document is very clear. The total amount of alcohol you drink is still the biggest factor, like regardless of what you're sipping on.
It's always back to moderation.
Always. It's like they say everything in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another little curveball. Some drinks can be sneaky. We tend to think, okay, darker equals more congeners.
Right. Makes sense.
But some craft beers or like those fancy liqueurs, those can actually be surprisingly high in both alcohol content and congeners, even if they don't look the part.
Okay, so no matter what, gotta pace ourselves, gotta watch out for those hidden congeners. But let's be honest, sometimes we have one too many.
It happens.
So what if, despite our best efforts, we wake up feeling the wrath of the hangover gods?
Yeah.
Does this document offer any lifelines?
It does. And it's not just about popping a pill and hoping for the best. The document gets into some proactive steps we can take
Okay.
before, during, and even after drinking
I like it.
to really try to minimize the damage and bounce back faster.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's talk damage control.
So, hydration. Absolutely key.
Of course.
I know we talked about alcohol's dehydrating effect, but this document really drives that point home.
Rightly so.
Think about it this way. Even being a little dehydrated
Yeah.
can throw off your body's performance.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I actually read somewhere that even being 1% dehydrated can mess with an athlete's performance by like 10%.
Exactly. It's crazy how much our bodies rely on water.
Wild, right?
And when you add alcohol to the mix, that dehydration just gets amplified.
Makes sense.
So staying ahead of the curve is huge EE.
Okay, how do we do that?
The document suggests a really simple rule. For every alcoholic drink you have a glass of water with a pinch of salt.
Interesting. Why the salt?
Adding a pinch of salt actually helps your body hold on to that water better.
Ah,
And it helps replenish the electrolytes that you lose when you're drinking.
it's like we're giving our bodies a fighting chance.
Exactly.
Simple, but effective. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
What about, what about those of us who just crave salty snacks when we drink? Are we off the hook?
I'm afraid not.
Oh,
While salty snacks can help a little bit with replenishing sodium, they're not a substitute for good old-fashioned H2O.
water is king no matter what. Got it.
Yeah.
Any other tips from the document's hangover prevention playbook?
Remember those troublemakers we were talking about? The free radicals that alcohol creates in our bodies?
Oh, right, right.
Well, this document really stresses how antioxidants can be our secret weapon.
Okay, antioxidants. Those are the good guys found in, like, fruits, vegetables, green tea, all that good stuff.
You got it.
Okay.
And it's not just about hangovers. A diet rich in antioxidants is great for your overall health, regardless of how much you drink.
So it's a win-win.
Exactly.
We can try to protect ourselves from those dreaded hangovers, support our long-term health.
Ah,
Okay, I like the sound of that.
absolutely. And this one might surprise you. The document even goes into that whole alcohol and heart health debate.
Oh, right.
Apparently, some studies suggest that moderate drinkers might have a lower risk of heart disease than those who abstain completely.
Wait, really? That's not what I would have expected.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But the document makes it very clear that this is a correlation, not necessarily cause and effect.
Oh, okay.
It could be that people who drink moderately also tend to have other healthy lifestyle factors going on. It's not necessarily just the alcohol itself.
That makes sense. It's easy to jump to those conclusions. Important to remember, correlation does not equal causation.
Exactly.
So we shouldn't all start pouring an extra glass of red wine every night thinking it's some magic health potion.
Definitely not. Always best to talk to your doctor about what's right for you.
Yeah. Always good advice. But back to those hangovers. We've talked about what we can do. What about things to avoid? What about all those, supposed hangover cures we've all heard about? Any truth to any of them?
That's a great question, and the document actually tackles a few of the most common culprits.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's start with painkillers. It might be tempting to reach for the ibuprofen when that headache hits,
Oh, yeah?
but the document actually advises against it,
Really?
especially if you're someone who takes painkillers regularly.
Why is that? I thought painkillers were supposed to, kill pain.
They are, but combining alcohol and painkillers, especially acetaminophen, can put extra stress on your liver.
Oh, okay.
And remember how we were talking about those individual factors?
Right.
If you already have any liver issues or take medications that could affect your liver, mixing alcohol and painkillers can be risky.
Okay, that's really good to know. It's easy to forget, our bodies are dealing with all this stuff at the same time.
Right.
Okay, what about everyone's favorite morning after pick-me-up? Caffeine. Friend or foe in the battle against hangovers?
I'm afraid caffeine falls into the faux category.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. Remember how we talked about dehydration?
Yeah.
Well, caffeine is a diuretic,
Newsflash.
just like alcohol.
Oh, no. So that
Yeah.
giant cup of coffee I'm craving is actually making things worse.
I'm afraid so. It can actually dehydrate you further, and that just makes those hangover symptoms last even longer.
There goes my whole morning routine. Okay. What about sugar? Surely a little sugar rush can't hurt when you're feeling terrible, right?
Well, remember how we were talking about how sugar masks the effects of alcohol
Yeah.
and how it can slow down your metabolism?
Right.
It turns out those sugary treats can backfire during a hangover too.
Oh, no.
They might give you a temporary boost, but that's often followed by a nasty sugar crash, and that can leave you feeling even worse than before.
Ugh, it's like a vicious cycle. We reach for things that seem comforting in the moment, but they end up sabotaging us in the long run.
It's true.
So if painkillers and caffeine and sugar are all out, what are we supposed to do?
Well, for pain and inflammation, the document suggests trying natural options like turmeric or serapeptase.
Turmeric. I've definitely heard good things about turmeric. How can we incorporate that?
Turmeric is a powerful anti-inflammatory. You can add it to smoothies, soups, or even just mix it with warm milk and honey for a soothing drink.
Okay. That sounds doable. And what about those caffeine cravings? Like if we absolutely need it, is there a gentler way to get that morning energy boost?
Green tea is a great option.
Okay.
It has less caffeine than coffee, so it provides a milder lift without that harsh diuretic effect. Plus, it's packed with antioxidants.
All right. Green tea it is. What about sugar cravings? Any advice there?
I would focus on hydrating foods like fruits and vegetables. They have natural sugars, so they'll give you some more sustained energy than processed sweets would.
Right.
And they're full of electrolytes and nutrients that are going to help your body recover.
It always comes back to hydration and nourishing our bodies.
It really does.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. The science behind hangovers, some myth-busting strategies to try to minimize the damage.
That's a lot to take in.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this document didn't stop there. It ventures into some pretty unexpected territory.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
How altitude affects alcohol, kava as an alternative,
Oh, interesting.
and even like a peek into the future of alcohol itself.
Wow, that's quite a deep dive.
It really is. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. So until next time, everyone, cheers to happy and responsible exploring.